He had this exchange with our own chief White House correspondent, Jim Acosta.
Miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian
investigation
because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be. I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead.
President Trump did something that I've never seen an American president do, which is go on a personal rant against you for the questions you were attempting to ask.
Well, Jake, when they go low, we keep doing our jobs. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And, you know, I had a question to ask, and if we had played the tape a little bit before that exchange, you would have seen the question that I was asking, which was essentially about this lie that he told before the midterm elections, that this caravan of migrants moving from Central America to the U.S. border with Mexico is somehow an invasion, when it's not. They're still hundreds of miles away, and they pose nothing of a threat to the United States. But the president used that language, obviously, as we've talked about so many times, to galvanize his base. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to
try to keep?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
Your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation? He just didn't like hearing that question. He didn't like being challenged on that point, and he certainly doesn't like being called out for his falsehoods. But of course, Jake, as you were just mentioning, that's our job. That's what we do over here. I think the other point that needs to be made is that during this press conference, the president time and again seemed to be attacking journalists of color. He was attacking my friend April Ryan, telling her to sit down.
You just have to sit down, please. Sit down. I didn't call you. I didn't call you. I'll give you voter suppression. Take a look at the CNN polls, how inaccurate they were. That's called voter suppression. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm not responding. I'm responding to. Excuse me. I'm not responding to you. I'm talking to this gentleman. Will you please sit down? Excuse me. Would you please sit down? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that the House of Representatives
very hostile. It's such a hostile media. It's so sad. You asked me about. No, you rudely interrupted him. Go ahead.
He was all fired up for 2020, he sounded, I thought, very depressed, very despondent, almost defeated in the way he was talking about these election results. And I think that's probably why you saw things spiral out of control.
This election marks the largest Senate gains for a president's party in a first midterm election since at least President Kennedy's in 1962.
You're a man who likes to win, but last night was not an absolute victory for you.
I'll be honest. I thought it was a very close to complete victory. When you look at it from the standpoint of negotiation, when you look at it from the standpoint of deal making, because it's all about deal making, again, if we had the majority and we had 1 or 2 or 3 votes to play with, we would have been at a standstill. I really believe that we have a chance to get along very well with the Democrats. And if that's the case, we can do a tremendous amount of legislation and get it approved by both parties.
The president, not once, not twice, but 3 times, said an African-American reporter's question, legitimate question, about his use of the word nationalist or nationalism and his embracing of that concept, that questioning that is racist. I don't even know where to start with that. It makes no sense at all.
Should we keep this going for a little while?
Yes, I think you should keep this
You know
going.
what? When you get bored, would you please tell me? Seriously. Tell me. You're never bored. I don't want to, hopefully not. I don't want to overstay, but yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. President. Yami Shelsunder with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also
I don't know
saying
why you'd
that
say
the
that.
president.
It's such a racist
There are
question.
some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists
Oh, I
because
don't
of your
believe
rhetoric.
that. I don't
What do you
believe
make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
And Mr. President,
I love it. You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also love the world. And I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems.
And
Excuse me. But to say that, what you said, is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said.
And Ms.
Also new in the last weeks of the campaign where he escalated a legitimate debate about border security, a legitimate debate about illegal immigration into race baiting and fear-mongering. And now he thinks it worked when he looks at the Senate map. And so that is his default, to go to these confrontations with the press, to accuse people of racism. The interesting thing to me, beyond that, let's take it to another wrinkle, the African-American women journalists asking the question, that was I was trying to make the point earlier about Nancy Pelosi. In addition to the default to race, the default to fear, this president does not like being challenged by women.
When you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people.